Another wide receiver is in the third of this transfer portal class, and this one has me the most excited out of any of them.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, more portal news. We're going to hop in and talk about one of the newest players that BC has landed, and it's a punter. We'll get into who that is and why we're going to get excited about that. We're also going to get into a wide receiver, a second one from Washington State, and I'll explain who that is and why I think this is a good get for BC, and how will this offense look differently this year. We'll get into all of this and more on today's show. Now, let's get into it. On Monday, Boston College landed their second commitment, of the day, and it was a wide receiver, Landon Wright, out of Wazoo. This is the second Wazoo transfer BC has landed. So technically, he's a Power 5 guy because they're going to be part of the Pac-12 next year. But he's entering his third year with in the college ranks. So this is he played 2 years for Wazoo. His first year, he redshirted. He had 7 catches for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns this last season. He's speedy. He's got good hands. There's a great clip I put up on my Twitter handle at AJBlack247 of him catching a touchdown pass in the Idaho Potato Bowl. What I loved about him was to read the potential of what Landon Wright has. And there was a quote from Jimmy Rogers, who's the coach for Washington State. And I think this kind of sums up what he could be. He says, this was before the 2025 season. I think Landon Wright could be really special, and he needs to continue to improve and have urgency about how he works. That would be a guy that I would love to take a huge jump because talent's not an issue. Knowledge, speed, work capacity, he needs to develop there some. But as far as what he has and how he's improved since we've been here, there's been jumps, and I'd love to see him take the next jump, because if he can do that, he'll be able to separate from older experience because he has youthfulness in his legs and is explosive and is fast and can be a huge playmaker for us. So there's your new wide receiver. I was curious. This was one that kind of surprised me because I thought they would go with a third wide receiver, but with news kind of slowing down, I either thought you would be getting a wide receiver and it would be a guy that would be basically a walk-on, or you'd be getting no wide receivers because they just weren't going that route. So you have Javarius Green out of UNC. You have Reed Swanson, the 6'6" wide receiver out of Colgate. And now you have Landon Wright. So this gives you 3 new wide receivers, and you definitely need this. You lost Reed Harris. You lost Lewis Bond. And then you've lost some of your depth guys, Cedric Lott, Samaj Fleming, guys that never really saw Ismail Samore. You needed to get more talent into that pool. Is that group as talented as what you had last year? I'm going to be honest, I don't think so yet. But as I am going to say for the next 8 months, prove it. Prove that maybe you don't have the high-end talent like Lewis Bond, but you have more versatility. Maybe you have more depth than you had last year. Right now, I'm a little concerned that you don't have the high, like all these guys maybe some of them will turn out to be better than their numbers show, but you don't have anybody right now that you look at and you say, okay, this guy is an established wide receiver, and I think I'm going to do that next year. You look at what you have on your roster and you're saying Jaden Skeet's going to have to be that guy. VJ Wilkins will have to develop into that guy, or Dawson Pugh is going to take that next step. You can do all that. You have the guys that the players that you've had, and then you bring in the new names and hope that you could develop them into what you need them to be. So for Green, you know, I was told again that he had Big Ten and SEC interest and chose Boston College. And he's a solid player. I think that's what I like. I like, again, this is what goes back to a lot of what BC has made it very clear what they're doing is that he's not a freshman here. You have a young one in Javarius Green. He's only in his second year. You needed more established guys. And yes, his numbers don't indicate that he's done a whole lot, but he's entering his third year. That's usually the year that players start to pop off. That's usually the years that they start to make that next big step, because the first year is doughy eyed, like, I'm coming from high school where I'm the boss, to getting squished by, men that are twice my size. It's an adjustment, right? Second year it's still a bit of an adjustment. Now you're on to year 3. This is when you're hitting your stride. And that's why I liked the Landon Wright signing here. I think this gives you another more established wide receiver. And honestly, of any of them, he may be the most established wide receiver you got, because you're bringing in Reed Swanson, who's the numbers are crazy. Like, he's got almost, what do you have, 90 catches last year and over almost 1,000 yards. But he played for Colgate. He played in the Patriot League. He's going to have his own adjustment. You have Javarius Green, who played only a handful of snaps. He's going to be younger. What you have here with Landon Wright is that more established wide receiver. He may not have played a ton of snaps, but he's played at a higher level. And I think that will give you another piece of versatility there at wide receiver. So where the wide receivers are at, who will be the star next year? I go back to, I still think that Jaden Skeet is the guy. Like, I think this last season was a real disappointment. I'm sure it was for him, but for anyone covering the team to watch, because I sat there in the summer at Fish Fieldhouse and watched him every single game be the most consistent wowing wide receiver. I'm going to say wowing wide receiver, even though it's not really grammatically correct, because he could consistently make plays. That's what he did. It was consistently like, this is key. Wow. Like he's longer than you expect. That's the thing. Like, you lost Reed Harris. Jaden Skeet is bigger than you think he may be. And so if he can stay healthy, that's going to be a big key here. The rest of these wide receivers may fall into line and be a nice complementary group of wide receivers. But you really need a healthy Jaden Skeet, because I think if you lose him, I get really worried about this group, because he is that guy. You're going to get I'm very interested to see what they do with VJ Wilkins, because he was the biggest shock for me, because last year, this is 2 years in a row that we've had transfers that are known to be speedy come into this roster and then disappear. Jaden McGowan never did anything. I watched a ton of practices with him. He never was anyone that really caught my attention, and he disappeared when he got here. Wilkins, on the other hand, in the spring, was this wide receiver that I was like, wow, they found something. This guy was everywhere, and his speed was off the charts. Then he gets hurt in camp, and then we never see him again. We see him play like 2 big plays at the beginning of the year. I think he had 2 50-yard catches from Dylan Larnaghan, and that was about it. I don't know if he was nagging with an injury, or there was just, he wasn't doing something that O'Brien didn't want. But I feel like that's a big untapped spot there for wide receivers too. And then you bring in Landon Wright, and you add in another wide receiver who could jump into that starting spot. And I think that competition, hopefully iron sharpens iron there. Now, in our second segment, let's continue the wide receiver offense talk, because I've been thinking a lot about what this new roster looks like and how Bill O'Brien is he's gonna need to change that offense. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. I love that I can find pieces that match my style without spending a fortune. It honestly made me feel like getting back into a routine this year felt a little bit more manageable. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for far less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black. And again, I want to tell you about something that's really I'm excited about. I got excited when we started this up, which is our everydayer club here at Locked On BC. Many of you guys and gals out there have been part of my crew for years. You're my everydayers. You're the ones that listen to this through the thick and thins, through the 2 and 10 seasons, through the coaching changes. And you're either graduates or you just love BC sports or you're a masochist. I don't know what it is, but you love hearing me talk about it and you love BC sports. Become part of our everyday alt access tier right now. I'm telling you, it's great. I did a 10-minute episode yesterday. Once I'm done with this live show, I'm going to do another 10-minute podcast for my all access tier. You get in, you get that. You get text messaging with me. I've been texting out. I have a bunch of you that have been texting at me, and I got to respond back to you, but I respond to as many as I can. You get ad-free shows. You get access to our Discord, which is like a group chat, which is really fun. Like there's like a group chat that's going on. I have my own BC one, and I would love to get you on there so we can start really talking BC in a group chat kind of setting, and all sorts of other great perks. The deal is right there on that link below. Sign up now. Become part of our Everydayers All Access tier. I hope to see you all there. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you all who have made Locked on Boston College your first listen every single day. And I want to talk about this offense because it is something that I am intrigued / confused about. And the reason that I'm intrigued is I'm wondering if Bill O'Brien is actually going to adjust the way he runs his offense to fit with what he built here. Now, 2 years ago, Bill O'Brien was, I don't want to say forced to deal with, but he was straddled with Tommy Castellanos. And honestly, Castellanos, as I said in previous shows, was a square peg in a round hole. Just was not the right fit. It ended up being a disaster for O'Brien. You're this mobile quarterback who just could not run this stylus system that he has. So I thought, okay, that's going to be the end of this type of quarterback. And when we saw the recruiting, the players that they're bringing in, some of them had a little mobility. They weren't like, they're not like statues back there. But I thought those types of mobile dual threat quarterbacks were just not going to be part of BC's repertoire. Well, this last portal has changed. It has made me think, okay, so maybe they aren't done with that because you brought in 2 quarterbacks. You brought in Mason Mackenzie out of Saginaw Valley, and you brought in Grayson Wilson out of Arkansas. Now, if you look up both of their stats, the number that pops the most is their rushing ability. Both guys ran for over 700 yards at different points in their career. When you talk, when you hear about this roster and I talk to my sources, what they are pushing is the mobility of these quarterbacks. So I look at that and I look at what the roster is looking like. And I'm wondering if Will Lawing and Bill O'Brien have kind of had a coming to God moment where they're thinking, okay, if they bring these guys in, you're going to have to let them run, because the most disastrous thing that BC could do next year is to put Mason Mackenzie behind, in the shotgun and force him just to make quick throws and reads. That's not what he does. Look at his statistics. Look at what he did. Like, I know you're not going to be able to watch a Saginaw Valley game, but if you look at kind of like just the numbers, he's an improviser. He's a guy that does a lot of things off schedule with which with the right offensive coordinator and head coach is a great thing. Look at, I mean, Bill brought it up. Like, look at what Trinidad Chambliss did with Ole Miss. But do you think of Bill O'Brien like that in his offense like that? No, that's not what their bread and butter is. Their bread and butter is a pro style offense where it's make the right reads, make your progressions, do this type of stuff. And if it doesn't happen, then you can break and run away, because he has had mobile quarterbacks. Grayson James ran the football, and if Dylan Lonergan didn't hurt his foot, he would have been able a bit more mobile than we saw as well. So I have to wonder if he made a conscious effort and has been very excited about these two new quarterbacks, and they seem so different than what you would expect from a Bill O'Brien quarterback. Like, Mason Mackenzie has completed 57% of his passes and threw quite a few interceptions. That doesn't strike me at the D2 level too. That doesn't strike me as a Bill O'Brien type of quarterback, but there's something he's thinking of. Either he thinks he can fix some sort of flaw with what happened that made him kind of tweaked, or he's saying what our offense is lacking is this mobility. And he kind of said this on his radio show with Meter. We needed mobile quarterbacks to kind of do that. And that's great, as long as the quarterback isn't getting hurt out there. And Mason Mackenzie is only 6 feet tall. He's not the biggest guy. And watching some of his runs at D2 level, he's kind of reckless. Like, I love a good quarterback that can take a hit. I watched Justin Herbert get absolutely sawed in half yesterday, but I don't think BC wants to see their quarterback get hurt. So I think this quarterback is going to need to be able to run the football more, and they're going to have to design plays to let him do that. Like, you can't just to make Mason Mackenzie or Grayson Wilson the most effective quarterbacks that they can be, you need to add the element of surprise with runs. Like, have design runs, have them, rolling out a lot more and doing things that you saw, kind of like what you saw Tommy Castellanos under Jeff Hafley. You're gonna, like, for these quarterbacks to work, this is what you need to do. You need to be able to let them kind of do their thing and coach them how to do it safely and effectively in the ACC so they don't die. So that's kind of where I see with these quarterbacks. And I want to say this too, because I've been asked a million times, are they going to, there's still spots left. Are they going to get another quarterback? If I from everything I've heard, from everything I've been told, I've been talking to people, I think they are doing the two quarterbacks they have, and that was it. I think there was a +1 at one point, and that was Deuce Knight, but he's gone to Ole Miss. Now that it's gone, I don't see them making another move. I mean, it could, I talked to some sources today, and I did not hear anything about another quarterback coming to BC. So I think this is what you have. And as a seasoned coach who's done this a long time, O'Brien, he knows what he need. I would imagine he knows what he needs to do to make this effective, because, not only do you have quarterbacks that I think would really struggle if you just force them to stay back in the pocket, I don't think you have the wide receivers this year to do what Lewis Bond did last year, to do what Reed Harris did last year. Like, your passing attack is going to be a little different. How many safety blanket shots downfield did they take to Lewis Bond last year? Do they have anyone that can do that? Maybe Ski could, but I don't know. And you look at the wide receiver, the tight end position too, and this year you ran out two wide receiver tight ends that could actually catch the football. You have a giant question mark at tight end too right now. No matter what I've heard, and what about Cameron Costman, this new tight end from Florida, I think you're going to have, maybe they're going to be able to develop him into one that's going to be Will Log's wheelhouse, but I'm not sure they have the two tight ends that can actually be effective pass catchers. They may, but we're going to have to wait to see what that looks like. So I think this offense is going to have to look different. And this team would be in a lot of trouble if O'Brien does not see that has to change. And he's a smart coach. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't see this. I'm just saying this is what has to happen if this team is going to take that next step. And they have to, because if they go 2-10 again, I'm going to be real sad. It's going to be a sad day at Locked On BC. Now, in our final segment, there was a special teamers, and I love talking about special teams. Let's talk more about it in just a moment. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moment you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I love being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I knew exactly what I was getting. The zone deal stood out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Now take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and we're wrapping things up here, talking more transfer portal talk, and it's not done, okay? For folks that have been asking, classes started on Monday, but there's still players' announcements that are happening. So there are at least 2 that I know of that are still going to happen, or in the works to happen, and I think that would be it, okay? I think that you're basically done after this. And for the folks asking, I don't expect players to be coming back. Like, for some folks were asking, like, hey, AJ, could some of the players entering the portal come back? It's all, based off of how many spots they have. I just haven't heard anything. There's different players that they've all gone to different spots. So I imagine most of them are gone. But I think there will still be a few more news items. And now, speaking of news items, there's a new punter in town. And the new punter is coming from Towson. It's Bryce LaFollette. Now, Bryce LaFollette is from Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, and he started his career at Virginia Tech. He was recruited by Virginia Tech. If you go to Eagle Insider, the picture's him with Brent Pry. So you can see that he was there for 2 years. He never played as the punter there, and then transferred to Towson. I got it. Don't tell me I got it. Towson. And so what does he bring? He's a punter, right? He averaged 43.5 yards per punt this previous season, and he had 21 punts inside the 20-yard line. The year before, he was around 42.5 yards as a punter. And there are other punters that will be there that I think you should know about as well. There's Andy Quinn, the kid from Ireland. You guys heard me last year, right? He was a punter that came here from Ireland and was booming. To me, the way that I think of how this is going to play out, right? LaFollette got a pretty good punting acumen. He's a pretty good kicker. And he's got 1 year left, right? Andy Quinn is still new. He's coming from Europe. I could see this year the way it could work, unless Quinn just kills it in camp. And he had his moments where he struggled, but I still loved his kicking. I think both guys will find a role this year, and this is how I think it'll work out. I think LaFollette's going to be your punter. I think he's going to be the punter this year. And I think Andy Quinn will be your kickoff specialist, because he is very good at just drilling the ball through the end of the end zone. He's a very good long kicker, and you give him 1 more year and he'll be fine. Okay. So I think that's what you get here with your punter. You've also added in a John Owens, a long snapper. We all love our long snappers. He played at Holy Cross. That was the first one. I don't know if we even talked about this on this podcast, but he's a new long snapper. He's going to be there with Cooper Crook, who was a snapper this year. Shout out to that family, who I know are listeners. And you got most of your special teams set. You got Luca Lombardo, which I think, honestly, I don't think I've talked about Luca, is the biggest coup of this offseason is that Notre Dame did not poach him, because I know Notre Dame really liked him, and I know he didn't get poached. So that kind of wraps up our conversations on special teams. Now, I want to address something that's popped up a few times. I see it in the comment section right now on 247. And if you guys were Eagle Insider people, you would have gotten your answer already to this. If you go to the transfer portal page, it gives you all the players that have left and all the players that are in. One note that came up was that Jason Hewlett withdrew from the portal. He did withdraw from the portal, but I do my reporting too. He is not going back to Boston College. I have that confirmed. That's not what's happening. Okay. So maybe he did, and I don't know why. I know he is withdrawn from the portal. I heard about that. And so, Chris Hummer had got the news and sent it over to me, but he's not coming back to BC. So don't add him to your depth chart. Don't ask me about him. He's not part of the roster. They've moved on past him. So I just wanted to address that one little piece. It's come up quite a bit, not just in this chat, but also on social media as well. Some people have seen it if you go look at that list. So that wraps up our show. I think there's going to be more news popping up. We still don't know who the running backs coach is and all that good stuff. Thank you all for following. And again, become part of their Everydayers Club. I'm going to be doing a special little mini episode in just a moment. And we'll talk more about everything Boston College on tomorrow's show. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Instagram, on TikTok, and on every social media app. And I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.